The new era of Formula One in 2026 was supposed to be about innovation, fair competition, and giving new manufacturers a real chance to challenge the established giants. But even before the first green light of the season, controversy has exploded across the paddock. Mercedes, the same team that once dominated the last major engine regulation reset in 2014, has once again found itself at the centre of attention. Strong early data from the Barcelona shakedown suggested the W17 is not only reliable, but potentially one of the fastest cars on the grid. Yet behind those impressive lap counts and headline times, rival teams are whispering about something far more serious: a possible loophole in the new engine compression ratio rules. Allegations began circulating that Mercedes, along with Red Bull powertrains, may have discovered a way to temporarily boost performance while still passing FIA measurements. Toto Wolff didn't hold back, firing sharp words at rival manufacturers and calling the accusations nothing more than distraction from their own struggles. Make sure you subscribe now, because this story could shape the entire 2026 F1 season, and what happens next may completely change the championship battle. Let's break it down. To fully understand why this controversy could define the entire 2026 Formula One era, we need to dive deep into the technical heart of the new power unit regulations, and why Mercedes suddenly finds itself under suspicion once again. At the centre of the storm is something that sounds simple, but in Formula One is incredibly powerful: the engine compression ratio. In basic terms, the compression ratio describes how much the air and fuel mixture inside the engine cylinder is squeezed before ignition. The higher the compression, the more explosive and efficient the combustion becomes, and the more power the engine can produce. For years, F1 engines operated at a ratio of 18:1, pushing the limits of engineering. But for 2026, the FIA reduced this to 16:1. The official reason was to make engine development more accessible, particularly for new manufacturers like Audi, and to reduce extreme costs. On paper, it seemed straightforward, but in reality, the way this ratio is measured may have opened a dangerous loophole. According to the regulations, compression ratio inspections are conducted when the engine is switched off and cooled to ambient temperature, not when it is running at full load. Not when it is producing peak power, but when it is cold. And this is where rival teams believe Mercedes, and possibly Red Bull powertrains, have been incredibly clever. The suspicion is that Mercedes has engineered a system where the internal engine components subtly shift when the engine heats up during operation. As temperatures rise, materials expand, potentially altering cylinder volume in a way that effectively increases the compression ratio while the car is on track. Then, once the engine cools down for FIA inspection, everything returns to the legal 16:1 specification. If that sounds like a small difference, think again. In modern Formula One, even a tenth of a second per lap is huge. The estimated gain from such a trick could be as much as 3/10, a performance advantage capable of turning a midfield car into a race winner. No wonder rival teams are alarmed. Ferrari, Audi and Honda were concerned enough to formally contact the FIA late last year, asking for clarification on how the compression ratio rule should be interpreted. Meetings between manufacturers and the governing body have already taken place, yet no immediate rule changes were introduced, a sign that the FIA itself is struggling to decide whether this is clever engineering or a breach of the spirit of the regulations. More meetings are now scheduled, suggesting the tension is far from over. And then came Toto Wolff's explosive response. Rather than backing down or sounding defensive, the Mercedes boss went on the attack. He accused rival teams of using the compression ratio debate as a distraction from their own shortcomings. His message was blunt and unapologetic, stop complaining and focus on building better engines. Wolff insists that Mercedes has followed the regulations exactly as written. He claims that not only does the power unit meet every technical requirement, but that the FIA has been fully informed throughout development and has repeatedly confirmed Mercedes' interpretation is legal. From Mercedes' point of view, this is not cheating. It is simply smart engineering within the framework of the rules. And history suggests Wolff may not be wrong. Formula One has always rewarded those who exploit grey areas better than others. From double diffusers, to flexible wings, to Mercedes' own revolutionary hybrid system in 2014. Many of the sport's biggest performance leaps came from interpreting the regulations more creatively than rivals. The difference now is that the stakes are enormous. When engine regulations change, the team that gets it right early often dominates for years. Mercedes did exactly that in the last major power unit reset, building an advantage so large it reshaped an entire era of Formula One. That is why rival teams are desperate to prevent history from repeating itself. And early signs from Barcelona only intensified their fears. Mercedes reportedly completed around 500 laps during the shakedown, the most of any team, showing impressive reliability from day one. George Russell and teenage sensation Kimi Antonelli were consistently near the top of the unofficial timing charts. While Ferrari eventually set the fastest single lap, Mercedes' combination of speed, consistency, and sheer mileage suggested a car that is extremely well developed. Toto Wolff even admitted that after several painful seasons of flawed designs, the W17 finally feels like a strong foundation. He described waking up happy knowing the car looks competitive, something Mercedes has not felt in years. But despite the optimism, Wolff remains cautious. Pre-season testing has fooled teams before. Performance can shift dramatically once fuel loads, engine modes, and real race conditions come into play. Still, within the paddock, the whispers are growing louder. Many believe Mercedes arrived at the 2026 regulation change better prepared than anyone else, not just with its chassis, but especially with its power unit. George Russell echoed this mixed feeling of optimism and caution. While bookmakers already see him as an early title favourite, Russell insists it is far too soon to talk about championships. He highlighted that Red Bull Ford powertrains, a brand new operation, has looked surprisingly strong and reliable in testing. Interestingly, Russell even welcomed the idea of a future title fight with Max Verstappen, hinting that Red Bull remains very much a threat. And this is where the situation becomes even more complex. If Mercedes truly holds a hidden advantage, the FIA may eventually be forced to step in and clarify the regulations more strictly. But if they do, it could mean mid-season technical changes, something that often leads to chaos, political battles, and massive shifts in competitiveness. There is also the nuclear option, a formal protest. If Ferrari, Audi, or Honda are not satisfied with upcoming FIA meetings, they could lodge an official complaint during a race weekend, potentially as early as the Australian Grand Prix. That would move the issue to the stewards, who are independent and have the power to reinterpret the rules entirely. And here lies the real danger for Mercedes. While the power unit currently passes all technical checks, the rulebook includes a broad clause stating that cars must comply with regulations at all times during competition, not just during inspection. If stewards decide that a temperature-based compression trick violates the overall intent of the rules, even if it technically passes current measurements, Mercedes could suddenly be forced to redesign major components of its engine. That would cost millions. That would disrupt development. And it could hand momentum straight to their rivals. So what we are witnessing right now is not just a technical debate. This is the opening political and engineering war of the 2026 Formula One era. Mercedes believes it has simply outworked and outsmarted the competition within the boundaries of the regulations. Rival teams fear another long period of Mercedes dominance and are trying to shut it down before it truly begins. And the FIA is stuck in the middle, trying to balance innovation with fairness, knowing that whatever decision they make could shape Formula One for the next decade. So is Mercedes truly playing fair? Or have they once again outsmarted the rulebook just like they did in the past? And if the FIA steps in, will it save the competition? Or spark an even bigger controversy? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of our latest videos.